The Great Hall of Nexus Station stretched for nearly a mile, its ceiling lost in artificial clouds. 47 different species sat in their designated sections, each area modified for their specific needs. Some breathed methane, others required water tanks, and a few existed as pure energy contained in special fields. This was the Galactic Council, and today they discussed a mystery 300 years old. Ambassador Hai stood at the central platform. Her blue skin reflected the station's lights as she activated the holographic display. She was Velkarian, a species known for their patience and scholarship. For the past 20 years, she had studied humanity with an obsession that worried her colleagues. "The humans went silent exactly 300 years ago," she began. Her voice translated into 47 languages simultaneously. No warning, no explanation. One day they were active members of this council. The next day, nothing. The hologram showed human territory. A cluster of 73 star systems near the galaxy's western spiral arm. Every system glowed with a dull red marker, indicating quarantine status. "We've all heard the stories," continued Hai. "Some say they destroyed themselves in a civil war. Others believe a plague wiped them out. Many think they simply weren't ready for space travel and collapsed under their own ambition." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Most species present had indeed written humanity off as another failed civilization. The galaxy had seen dozens of young races rise quickly and fall just as fast. Humans seemed no different. "But I have evidence that suggests otherwise," Hai said, changing the hologram. Now it showed a human colony world designated as Kepler 442. The planet rotated slowly, its cities clearly visible from orbit. Lights dotted the night side. Power signatures indicated active fusion reactors. Agricultural zones showed organized farming. "This image was taken last month by a long-range probe," Hai explained. "The cities are maintained. The farms are producing. The planetary defense grid is operational, but when we tried to make contact, we received no response. Not even automated systems replied to our signals." A council member from the insectoid Rothi species clicked forward. "Perhaps automated systems maintain everything while the population is extinct?" "That's what I thought too," Hai replied. "Until we checked 17 more human worlds, all the same, maintained, powered, operational, but empty of any human communication. The mathematical probability of perfect automation across 73 star systems for 3 centuries is essentially zero." The council chamber fell quiet. If humans were alive, but choosing not to communicate, that raised uncomfortable questions. Why would an entire species go silent? What were they doing in those systems that required such complete isolation? The chairman, a crystalline being named Voth, spoke in his resonating tone. "The quarantine has held for 300 years. Perhaps we should simply maintain it. If humans wish to remain isolated, that is their choice." "I agree," Hai said, surprising everyone. "I'm not suggesting we violate the quarantine. I'm simply asking that we update our records. Humanity is not extinct. They are present, active, and deliberately silent. We should remember that distinction." The council voted. The records would be updated. Humanity's status changed from presumed extinct to self-isolated. It seemed like a small change, merely bureaucratic. None of them knew that this small change would ripple outward with consequences none could predict. 3 months later, everything changed. A Thalian mining ship called the Prophet's Edge had been harvesting asteroids near the edge of the quarantine zone. The Thalians were a large, aggressive species who valued strength and resources above all else. They had the second largest fleet in the galaxy, and they knew it. Captain Bowl commanded the Prophet's Edge. He was reviewing the day's mineral yields when his navigation officer reported a problem. "Captain, we've drifted across the quarantine boundary," the officer said nervously. "Solar winds pushed us 3 light minutes into human space." Bull waved a massive hand dismissively. Then drift us back out. The humans have been dead for centuries. Their quarantine is just superstition now. But as they turned to leave, their communications array picked up something. A signal, a transmission in old human standard language. Stay away. Final warning. The message repeated every 30 seconds. Just those 4 words. Nothing else. Ball ordered the ship back across the boundary at maximum speed. Once safely in neutral space, he reported the incident to Thalian Command. The message was analyzed by military intelligence. They confirmed it was genuine, a human transmission, recent and active. The news reached the Galactic Council within days. Ambassador High received the report in her quarters aboard Nexus Station. She read the 4 words over and over. Stay away. Final warning. It wasn't a greeting. It wasn't an explanation. It was a warning. After 300 years of perfect silence, humanity's first message to the galaxy was a threat. High immediately requested an emergency council session. 2 days later, the Great Hall filled again. This time, the atmosphere was different. Fear mixed with curiosity, excitement mixed with dread. "What does this mean?" asked the Rothi representative. "Why warn us away if they wanted isolation? They already had it." "Perhaps," said a Velcarian scholar, "they knew someone would eventually test the boundary. This message might have been waiting for 300 years, ready to activate when triggered." "Or," said the Thalian ambassador, his voice deep and threatening, "they've been hiding in there, building weapons, preparing for conquest. This silence was never about peace. It was about preparation." The chamber erupted in argument. Some species called for immediate military reconnaissance. Others demanded the quarantine be strengthened and enforced. A few suggested attempting peaceful contact. Ambassador High listened to it all, saying nothing. She looked at the hologram of human space, thinking about a species that had gone quiet for 3 centuries and was now saying just 4 words. She thought about what kind of civilization chooses silence. She thought about what they might have been doing all this time. And she thought about what kind of warning comes from a species the galaxy had written off as extinct. Deep in her heart, High felt something she hadn't felt in years. Fear. Real, cold fear. Because she realized something the others hadn't yet understood. Those 4 words weren't a warning to protect human territory from the galaxy. They were a warning to protect the galaxy from what humanity had become. Fleet Commander Day stood on the bridge of the Thalian warship Dominance, watching the stars shift as they entered human space. Behind his flagship, 200 warships followed in perfect formation. The Third Fleet was the pride of the Thalian Empire, and Day had never lost a battle in his 40 years of service. "We are now 5 light years inside the quarantine zone," reported his tactical officer. "No contacts on sensors. No responses to our presence." Day nodded, his thick armor plates clicking together. The Thalians were built like walking tanks, their bodies naturally armored, their strength legendary. They respected power and nothing else. For 300 years, human space had sat unused, filled with habitable worlds and rich resources. The Council's fear was foolish. The Thalians would claim what the dead had left behind. "Proceed to the nearest human colony world," Day ordered. "Kepler 442. We'll establish our base there." The fleet moved deeper into human territory. Days passed without incident. The ships jumped from system to system, finding exactly what the old records showed. Human stations orbited planets, their lights on, their systems running. Satellites maintained their orbits, defense platforms remained powered. But there were no humans, no ships, no transmissions, no life signs. On the 5th day, they reached Kepler 442. The planet hung in space like a blue-green jewel. Cities covered 3 continents. From orbit, Day could see organized farms, transportation networks, and industrial centers. Everything looked perfect. Too perfect. Send down a landing team, Day commanded. I want samples, data, and a full report on why these systems still function. 2 transport ships descended to the largest city. The landing team walked through empty streets. Buildings stood intact, clean, without any decay. Parks showed fresh grass, though no gardeners tended them. Vehicles sat in neat rows, their power cells charged. In one building, they found a meal on a table, preserved perfectly by some technology they didn't understand. It's like everyone just vanished in an instant, the team leader reported. No bodies, no signs of struggle, no indication of any disaster. They're just gone. Day listened to the report, feeling unease for the first time in years. Where were the humans? If they had left, where did they go? If they had died, where were the remains? Nothing made sense. Over the next week, the Third Fleet explored 12 human worlds. Every single one was the same: maintained, operational, and empty. The ships found vast underground facilities, clearly built in the last 3 centuries, but their purposes were unclear. The technology was beyond anything the Thalians understood. Then the disappearances began. The scout ship Evening Star was patrolling the system's edge when it simply stopped reporting. No distress call, no weapon discharge detected. One moment it was there, the next moment, gone from all sensors. Probably an equipment malfunction, Day told his officers, though doubt crept into his voice. Send another scout to investigate. The second scout ship also vanished, then a third. Within 2 days, the Third Fleet lost 17 ships to whatever was taking them. No wreckage was ever found, no debris. It was as if the ships had simply ceased to exist. Day ordered a full retreat from human space. The fleet formed up and moved toward the quarantine boundary. But when they reached the coordinates where they had entered, they found something impossible. Space itself was wrong. Sensors showed massive gravitational distortions that hadn't been there before. When they tried to jump to faster-than-light speed, their engines failed. They were trapped, surrounded by invisible walls they couldn't see or understand. "All ships, battle formation!" Day shouted. "Weapons hot! Prepare for contact!" The fleet formed a defensive sphere, every ship's weapons armed and targeting systems active. They waited. Minutes passed like hours. The crew's breathing was the only sound on the bridge. Then the sensors began screaming. Objects emerged from space itself, as if reality was tearing open. One ship appeared, then 10, then hundreds, then thousands. They materialized from nothing, surrounding the Thalian fleet completely. The designs were unlike anything in the galactic database. Sleek, organic shapes that seemed to flow rather than fly. They moved with impossible grace, shifting positions faster than should be possible. "Count?" Day demanded, his voice tight. "Computer can't establish accurate count," the tactical officer replied, his hands shaking. "Estimate? Over 5,000 vessels. Commander, they're not showing up on half our sensors. It's like they exist between dimensions." A transmission came through every ship's communication system simultaneously. A human woman's voice, speaking perfectly clear Thalian language. "We asked you to stay away," the voice said, calm and cold as deep space. "You were warned." Day grabbed his communication console. "This is Fleet Commander Day of the Thalian Empire. Identify yourselves." "You know who we are," the voice replied. "We are what you thought extinct. We are what you thought weak. We are humanity, and we are very disappointed in you." The human ships moved closer, forming geometric patterns around the trapped fleet. Day watched in horror as the patterns shifted, creating some kind of energy field. Every tactical display on every Thalian ship showed the same thing. They were completely outmatched. The humans had weapons that existed in states of quantum uncertainty, defenses that bent space itself, and computing power that made the fleet's artificial intelligence look like primitive calculators. "Fire all weapons!" Day ordered desperately. The Thalian fleet unleashed everything. plasma cannons, railguns, missile swarms, and energy beams, enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The weapons crossed the distance to the human ships and simply stopped. They hung in space, frozen, as if time itself had stopped around them. Then gently they were pushed back toward the Thalian fleet. Not attacking, just returning. Like a parent returning a child's thrown toy. "Cease fire!" Day screamed. "Cease fire!" The human voice spoke again. "You violated our space. You ignored our warning. You came with weapons ready to take what wasn't yours. This is who you are. This is who you have always been." A pulse of energy swept through the fleet. Every ship's weapon system shut down instantly. Propulsion systems went offline. Life support remained, but nothing else functioned. 200 warships floated helpless, surrounded by thousands of human vessels. "We could end you," the human voice continued. "In less time than it takes you to draw breath, we could turn your ships into dust. We could make your empire forget you ever existed. We have the power to reshape reality itself, within our territory." Day felt true fear for the first time in his life. This wasn't battle. This was a demonstration. The humans were showing them exactly how outmatched they were. "But we won't," the voice said, and now there was sadness in it. "Because we are trying to be better than what we were. We spent 300 years learning to control our nature. We won't let you make us forget those lessons." The human ships began to move away, creating a corridor through their formation. "Leave," the voice commanded. "Your systems will reactivate once you cross the boundary. Tell your people, tell your council, tell the galaxy. Humanity is not extinct. We simply have nothing to say to you, yet." The gravitational distortions vanished. The Thalian ship's propulsion systems flickered back to life. Day didn't hesitate. He ordered full-speed retreat, and the entire Third Fleet fled human space like children running from darkness. As they crossed the boundary, Day looked back at the sensors. The human ships had vanished as completely as they had appeared. It was as if they had never been there at all. But Day knew the truth. They had always been there, watching, waiting, and now the galaxy would learn what 300 years of silence had created. The Third Fleet limped back to Nexus Station like wounded animals. Half the ships needed repairs, not from battle damage, but from the stress their systems had endured when the humans shut them down. Fleet Commander Day refused to speak to anyone except the Thalian High Command. His officers reported that he sat in his quarters, staring at nothing, his normally fierce demeanor completely shattered. Within hours, the news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Humanity was not only alive, but possessed technology centuries beyond anything the Galactic Council had. The species that went silent 300 years ago had returned, and they were terrifying. Dr. Jin stood in the Velkarian Research Institute, surrounded by screens displaying every piece of data about humanity he could find. He was a thin male, his blue skin paler than most Velkarians, his eyes tired from weeks without proper sleep. Next to him, Ambassador Hai reviewed the same data, her expression grim. 5,000 ships appeared from nowhere, Jin said, pacing back and forth. The Thalian sensors couldn't track them properly. They described the vessels as existing between dimensions. That's not possible with any known technology. Clearly it is possible, Hai replied. We just didn't know it. The question is, how did humans develop such capabilities in 300 years? Jin pulled up a timeline on the main screen. Let me show you something. In the final decade before the silence, human behavior changed dramatically. Look at these reports. The screen showed Galactic Council records from 300 years ago. Human delegates had become increasingly withdrawn. Trade missions were quietly ended. Colonization stopped completely, even though humans had been expanding aggressively before that. Scientists from other species who had been working with humans reported that their human colleagues seemed distracted, obsessed with something they wouldn't discuss. What were they working on? Hai asked. Jin opened another file. I found fragments of human academic papers from that era. Most were destroyed or encrypted, but I recovered pieces. They were researching quantum consciousness, neural networking, genetic modification, and something they kept referencing as the Great Work. The Great Work? What does that mean? I don't know exactly, Jin admitted. But look at these phrases from different papers. He highlighted several lines on the screen. Evolutionary necessity. Transcendence protocol. Becoming what we must be. It's almost religious in tone, but these were scientists writing, not philosophers. Hai read through the fragments, her expression growing more concerned. You think they changed themselves? Transformed their entire species? It's the only explanation that makes sense, Jin said, pulling up biological scans the Thalian fleet had managed to take. These energy signatures around the human ships, they're organic, not purely mechanical. The ships themselves appear to be partially biological or perhaps grown rather than built. And look at this. He zoomed in on a particular data point. For just a moment, the Thalian sensors detected something inside those vessels, heat signatures consistent with human body temperature. But the readings were strange. Individual humans, yes, but also something else, like they were connected somehow, networked. A hive mind? Hai felt cold. No, I don't think so. More like individuals who can share thoughts and process information collectively when needed. Imagine keeping your individual personality, but having access to the computational power of thousands of minds working together. The implications were staggering. If humans had somehow enhanced themselves, integrated technology into their biology, achieved a form of networked consciousness while remaining individuals, they would be capable of things no other species could imagine. How long would such a transformation take? Hai asked quietly. For an entire species? All their colonies? All their people? Jin shook his head. Generations, unless they had already developed the technology before they went silent. Then 300 years would be enough time to implement it across their entire population. They didn't go silent because they were dying. They went silent because they were changing, and they didn't want us to see it happening. A communication alert interrupted them. The Galactic Council was convening an emergency session. All species representatives were required to attend immediately. The Great Hall of Nexus Station had never been so full. Every council member was present, and they had brought military advisors. The atmosphere was tense, fearful, and angry all at once. The Thalian ambassador stood first. Humanity has become a threat. They possess weapons we cannot match, technology we cannot understand, and they have demonstrated their willingness to use force. We must respond with overwhelming military power before they become even stronger. Murmurs of agreement rippled through several species sections. Are you insane? Shouted the Rothi representative. They disabled your entire fleet without firing a shot. They could have destroyed you but chose not to. That shows restraint, not aggression. It shows arrogance, the Thalian countered. They believe they're superior to us. Today they disable our ships. Tomorrow they enslave us. We must strike while we still can. The debate raged for hours. Some species wanted immediate military action. Others urged caution. A few suggested trying peaceful contact. The Council fractured along old alliance lines. The Thalian Empire, the Cronus Union, and 17 other militaristic species began forming a coalition. They called themselves the Independence Alliance, claiming they were defending galactic freedom. Ambassador Hai finally stood, requesting silence. Before we make any decisions, we need to understand what we're dealing with. I propose we attempt contact. Send a message into human space. Ask them to explain what they've become and what they want. We already know what they want, the Thalian ambassador growled. They want us to fear them. Then let's give them the chance to tell us otherwise, Hai replied firmly. The council voted. By a narrow margin, they agreed to send an official message to humanity. It would be broadcast into human space on all frequencies, asking for dialogue. The message would be simple. We acknowledge your presence. We respect your territory. We wish to understand. Please respond. Jin and Hai worked together to compose the message, making sure it was respectful but clear. They sent it into human space and waited. Days passed with no response. The military coalition grew stronger, gathering fleets at the quarantine boundary. They claimed they were defensive measures, but everyone knew they were preparing for war. On the 7th day after the message was sent, something impossible happened. A human appeared on Nexus Station, not arrived via ship, not transported through the docking bays, simply appeared, as if he had always been there, but they were only now noticing him. He stood in the central plaza of the civilian section, a human male of average height with dark hair and calm eyes. He wore simple clothes that seemed to shift colors based on the light. People from dozens of species stopped and stared at him. Station security rushed to the scene, weapons ready. The human raised his hands peacefully. When he spoke, everyone present heard him in their own language, though his lips moved only once. "My name is Tai," he said. "I am humanity's ambassador. I have come to answer your questions and to make humanity's intentions clear. I request an audience with the Galactic Council." Security surrounded him, but no one knew quite what to do. How had he appeared on the station? How was he translating to every language simultaneously? What else could he do? Ambassador Hai pushed through the crowd. She looked at Tay carefully, studying him. He looked human, but something about him was different. His eyes held an intelligence that seemed almost overwhelming, like staring at a sun that had been dimmed to safe levels. "Where did you come from?" she asked. Tay smiled gently. "We've been here the whole time, watching, learning, waiting to see if you'd grown." He looked around at the gathered crowd. "We hoped you would have. We're disappointed but not surprised. The cycle of fear and violence is hard to break." "What cycle?" Hai asked. "What are you talking about?" "Come to the council chamber," Tay replied. "Bring everyone. It's time humanity spoke. We've been quiet for 300 years. Now we have things to say that you need to hear." He walked calmly toward the great hall, security following nervously. Hai watched him go, her heart pounding. This was it. After 3 centuries, humanity was finally going to explain what they had become, and she wasn't sure the galaxy was ready for the answer. The great hall fell silent as Captain Tay walked to the central platform. Every species representative watched him carefully, some with curiosity, others with open hostility. Armed security lined the walls, though everyone knew weapons would be useless if this human was anything like the ships that had disabled the Thalian fleet. Tay stood alone in the center, unhurried and calm. He looked at each section of the council, making eye contact with dozens of different species. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, but everyone heard it clearly, as if he was speaking directly into their minds. 300 years ago, humanity stood where many of you stand now, he began. We were aggressive, expanding, consuming. We competed for resources. We looked at other species as rivals or tools. We were young and foolish and dangerous, just like most of you are now. Angry murmurs rose from several sections. The Thalian ambassador stood. "You insult us and expect peaceful dialogue?" "I speak truth," Tay replied without hostility. "Truth is not insult. Look at your own history. How many wars have you fought in the last century? How many species have you conquered or exploited? How many times have you chosen violence as your first solution?" The Thalian had no answer. Tay continued, addressing the entire council. "Humanity realized we were on the wrong path. We looked at the galaxy and saw the same patterns repeating. Species expanding until they met other species. Conflict over resources. Wars over territory. Temporary peace followed by more conflict. We saw civilizations destroying themselves through internal fighting. We saw the galaxy trapped in a cycle that had no end. So we asked ourselves a question. What if we stopped? What if instead of going outward, we went inward? What if we evolved past our need for endless expansion and conflict? Another human materialized beside Tay. This one was a woman with short dark hair and eyes that held the same overwhelming intelligence. Tay gestured to her. This is Ambassador Na. She was a historian before the transformation. She will show you what we became. Na raised her hand, and the air above the council filled with images. Humans working with technology that seemed alive. Cities that existed partially out of phase with normal space, structures that bent the laws of physics, and humans themselves, not just using the technology but integrated with it, part of it. We spent 50 years developing the process, Na explained. Genetic modification at the cellular level, neural interfaces with quantum computing systems, distributed consciousness while maintaining individuality. We enhanced our bodies to withstand environments that would kill baseline humans. We expanded our minds to process information at speeds that make your fastest computers look slow. The images showed the transformation spreading across human space. Volunteers first, then generations born into the new state. Cities rebuilt around new principles. Ships grown rather than constructed. An entire civilization restructuring itself from the ground up. The process took 250 years to complete, Na continued. Every human colony, every station, every individual. We maintained automation to keep our old structures running while we underwent the change. We went silent because we didn't want you to see us vulnerable. We didn't want you to fear what we were becoming. We hoped that when we were done, the galaxy would have evolved too. But you haven't, Tay said, and there was genuine sadness in his voice. You're still fighting the same wars, still competing for the same resources, still trapped in the same cycle. The chairman Voth spoke, his crystalline body resonating. You say you evolved, but evolution doesn't happen in 300 years. You've modified yourselves artificially, made yourselves into something unnatural. All technology is unnatural, Tay replied. Your ships are unnatural. Your medicine is unnatural. Your cities are unnatural. We simply applied technology to ourselves instead of just our environment. And yes, it changed us, made us different, but it didn't make us less human. Prove it, demanded the Thalian ambassador. Show us you're still human and not machines wearing human skin. Tay smiled, and for the first time, real emotion showed on his face. I still remember my mother's smile. I still feel joy when I see a sunrise. I still grieve for friends who chose not to transform and lived out their natural lives. I still write poetry, though none of you would understand the mathematical language it's composed in now. I am more human than I ever was, not less. I'm just a human that evolved. He gestured and the images changed. Now they showed recordings from the past 300 years. Humans watching the galaxy from hidden observation posts, recording wars, genocides, environmental disasters, and species-wide collapses. We've been watching you, Tay said. All of you. We've seen every conflict, every decision, every choice between peace and violence. We've tracked your progress, hoping to see growth. And sometimes we have. Sometimes species surprise us, but most of the time, he trailed off, letting the images speak for themselves. Now we face a choice, Tay continued. Humanity could dominate this galaxy easily. Our technology is centuries beyond yours. We can manipulate space and time in ways you're only beginning to understand. We could disable every aggressive species fleet, strand you on your homeworlds, and force peace upon you. He paused, letting that sink in. We could become your masters, ruling for your own good, making your choices for you. We have the power to do this. The hall was deathly silent. Every representative understood the threat, even unstated. But we won't, Tay said firmly, because that would make us exactly what we evolved to move beyond. Dominance, control, force. These are the tools of the old humanity, of the old way of thinking. We spent 300 years learning to be better. We won't throw that away just because you disappoint us. So what do you want? Asked Ambassador High, her voice steady despite her fear. We want you to choose, Tay replied. The galaxy stands at a crossroads. You can continue as you are, fighting, competing, destroying. We will leave you alone. We'll maintain our borders and watch as you repeat the same cycles until you destroy yourselves or finally learn. He gestured and new images appeared. Humans teaching other species, sharing knowledge, guiding evolution. Or you can accept our help. We will share our knowledge. Not our technology, you're not ready for that, but our wisdom, our methods, our path. We'll teach any species that wants to learn how to evolve beyond violence, how to grow past the need for endless consumption, how to transform your civilizations into something better than what you are. And if we refuse? The Thalian asked. Then you refuse, Tay said simply. We won't force you, but know that we'll be watching. Any species that attacks another will find their weapons disabled. Any government that commits genocide will find their leaders removed. We won't rule you, but we won't allow the worst of your nature to run free either. Call it protective observation. Call it guardianship. Call it whatever you want. Na stepped forward. We know this is frightening. Change always is. But consider this. Humanity was where you are now. We were violent, aggressive, and short-sighted. And we changed. We evolved. We became something better. If we could do it, so can you. All of you. Tay pulled up one final image. It showed a simulation of the Thalian fleet's attack, every ship's trajectory, every tactical decision, every possible outcome. All of them ended in defeat, just as Tay had promised. The simulation had been calculated before the fleet even entered human space. We knew you would come, Tay said to the Thalian ambassador. We knew you would attack. We knew exactly how you would fight and how you would fail. We know you all better than you know yourselves. Not because we're superior, but because we've had 300 years to study you while you thought we were extinct. He lowered his hand and the images vanished. You have 1 month to decide. Species that wish to partner with us, contact the ambassadors we will leave on Nexus Station. Species that wish to remain independent, we respect that choice. But the age of uncontrolled violence in this galaxy is over. Humanity was quiet for 300 years because we needed to grow. Now we're back, and we're offering you the same chance. Choose wisely. Tay and Na began to fade, like ghosts disappearing in sunlight. Before they vanished completely, Tay spoke one last time. We're not your enemies. We're not your masters. We're your teachers if you'll have us. The galaxy is far stranger and more dangerous than you know. We need to be ready. All of us. Together. Then they were gone, leaving the council in shocked silence. 6 months after Captain Tay's speech, the galaxy looked very different. Ambassador High stood in her quarters aboard Nexus Station, reviewing reports from across known space. The transformation happening before her eyes was both hopeful and terrifying. The council had fractured exactly as Tay predicted. 12 species, led by the Thalian Empire, had formed what they called the Independence Coalition. They rejected humanity's offer completely. They withdrew their representatives from Nexus Station, closed their borders, and began militarizing in earnest. They claimed they were defending their sovereignty, but everyone knew they were afraid. Afraid of change, afraid of losing power, afraid of what evolution might mean for their cultures. Humanity respected their choice. Human ships monitored the Independence Coalition borders, but never crossed them. Tay had promised not to force anyone, and humanity kept that promise. The 12 species existed in isolation, watching the rest of the galaxy with suspicion and growing paranoia. But 35 species had chosen differently. They accepted humanity's offer. They requested teachers, guides, and partners, and humanity responded. High walked through Nexus Station's human quarter, a section that had been empty for 300 years and was now bustling with activity. Humans lived here now, not hidden or isolated, but present and open. She saw them interacting with other species, teaching, learning, and simply existing alongside galactic society. She spotted Instructor Wu near a cafe discussing quantum mechanics with a group of Valkyrian students. Wu was patient and kind, breaking down concepts that would have seemed like magic a year ago into understandable principles. The students were eager, asking questions, pushing boundaries. This was happening across the galaxy now, humans teaching, other species learning. Coordinator Sue worked on the Rothi homeworld, helping them restructure their resource distribution systems. The Rothi had always struggled with scarcity despite having plenty. Sue showed them new agricultural methods, new energy systems, new ways of thinking about abundance. Within months, Rothi society began shifting from competition to cooperation. Haye's own people, the Valkyrians, had embraced the human partnership enthusiastically. On her homeworld, a pair of human diplomats named Yoon and Hyun were stationed permanently. They were helping Valkyrians develop their first quantum consciousness interface, a device that would let individuals connect their minds temporarily, sharing thoughts and processing power. It was the first step toward what humans called the awakening. Not everyone was happy about the changes. Resistance movements formed on several worlds. Some called the humans colonizers with gentle faces. Others claimed humanity was destroying traditional cultures. On 3 different planets, terrorist attacks targeted human advisors. The worst attack happened on a Valkyrian research station. A bomb destroyed a transport ship carrying 3 humans, 2 teachers, and 1 medical specialist. The explosion was powerful enough to vaporize everything. No remains were ever recovered. High had been on Nexus Station when news of the attack reached the Council. The Great Hall filled within hours. Representatives from all species gathered, waiting to see how humanity would respond. The Independence Coalition sent observers, clearly expecting military retaliation. After all, when their people were killed, they always answered with violence. Captain Tay appeared in the center of the hall, as he sometimes did now, materializing without warning. His face showed grief, real and deep. For a long moment, he said nothing, just stood there with tears running down his face. Their names were Kim, Bo, and Sun, he finally said, his voice heavy with sadness. Kim taught xenobiology and loved ancient music. Bo specialized in pediatric medicine and could make any child laugh. Sun was an engineer who wrote poetry in his spare time. They were friends of mine. They were good people. And they're gone. The hall remained silent. Every species present knew this moment would define humanity's true nature. Were they really beyond violence, or was that just words? To those who killed them, I say this, Tay continued. I understand your fear. I understand your anger. Change is terrifying, especially when it comes from outside. You see us as invaders, as threats to your way of life. And I'm sorry. Sorry that we frighten you. Sorry that our presence feels like pressure. Sorry that you felt violence was your only option. He wiped his eyes. But I won't let your fear turn me back into what I was. We will not retaliate. We will not hunt you down. We will not answer death with death. Kim, Bo, and Sun chose to help people. They chose peace. Their deaths will not be the excuse for us to abandon that choice. The Thalian observer stood. This is weakness, he declared. Your people were murdered and you do nothing? No. Tay replied quietly. This is strength. True strength. It takes no strength to hit back when hit. Any animal can do that, It takes real strength to break the cycle, to choose peace even when rage would be easier. That's what Kim, Bo, and Sun taught, and that's the lesson their deaths will reinforce. Violence ends when someone chooses to end it. He looked around the hall. We will increase security. We will protect our people and yours. But we will not retaliate. The partnership continues for any species that wants it. The door remains open, even to those who attacked us. When you're ready to choose peace, we'll be waiting. Then he vanished, leaving the council in stunned silence. Over the following months, something remarkable happened. The attack that was meant to drive humanity away instead showed the galaxy what they truly were. Public opinion shifted. Species that had been uncertain about the partnership began requesting human advisors. Even within the Independence Coalition, voices began calling for reconciliation. The resistance movements didn't disappear, but they lost support. It's hard to call someone an enemy when they refuse to be your enemy, even when you kill them. Dr. Jin spent his days now working directly with human scientists. He was part of a team developing what Tai called transition technology, tools to help other species begin their own evolution. Not forced, not required, but available for those who chose it. One day, Hai visited Jin in his laboratory. She found him staring at a holographic display showing something incredible, a map of signals from beyond the galaxy. "What is that?" she asked. Jin looked at her with eyes full of wonder and fear. "Tay gave me access to this yesterday. It's why humanity evolved. It's why they're preparing us." The display showed hundreds of signals, each one representing a transmission from another galaxy. Some were close, cosmically speaking. Others were from distances so vast that the light had been traveling for millions of years. "There are other civilizations out there," Jin said softly. "Not in our galaxy. Beyond it. Some of them are millions of years old. Some possess technology that makes humanity look primitive. And they know we're here." Hai felt cold. "Why hasn't humanity told the council?" "Because we're not ready," said Tay's voice behind them. He had appeared silently, as was his habit. "The species in our galaxy are still fighting over resources on single planets. You're not ready to face civilizations that have conquered entire galaxies. But you need to be ready soon. We've detected changes in the signals. Movement. Some of those civilizations are coming closer." "How long do we have?" Hai asked. "Hundreds of years, maybe thousands." "We're not sure. Time works differently for beings that advanced. But humanity spent 300 years preparing for this. We evolved because we had to. Now we're helping you evolve for the same reason. The universe is vast and strange and full of things that would terrify your current civilizations. But together, with every species contributing their unique perspective, their unique strengths, we might be ready when contact comes." Hai looked at the map of signals, then back at Tai. "Is that why you're really here? Not to help us evolve morally, but to prepare us for war with whatever's out there?" "No war," Tay said firmly. "Never war. But readiness, yes. Understanding. The ability to meet them as equals rather than victims. Those civilizations out there have already moved beyond violence, beyond conquest. They're not coming to invade. They're coming to meet us, to see if we're ready to join the greater community of conscious beings. And right now, we're not. But we could be." He smiled, and for the first time, Hai saw hope in his expression. That's what the partnership is really about. Not just making you better, making all of us better. Humanity isn't the end point of evolution. We're just one step on an infinite ladder. We want to climb that ladder together, with every species bringing their own gifts. "What if the Independence Coalition never joins us?" Hai asked. "Then they stay behind," Tay said sadly. "We won't force them. But when contact comes, when those beings from beyond arrive, The coalition will see what they missed. They'll see species that evolved together, that grew together, meeting the universe as partners. And they'll see themselves, isolated and small, having chosen fear over growth. He gestured at the star map. The universe is bigger than any of us imagined. We were quiet for 300 years because we needed to understand that. Now we're back because it's time for everyone to understand. The galaxy isn't the end, it's just the beginning. Months became years. The partnership deepened. Species that had been enemies for generations began working together under human guidance, not because humanity forced them, but because they showed them new ways to resolve old conflicts. The Independence Coalition remained separate, but cracks were showing. Some species within it began questioning their leaders. Why hide from knowledge? Why refuse to grow? The humans weren't invading, they weren't conquering, they were just teaching, and their students were flourishing. Hai stood on an observation deck, watching ships from dozens of species traveling together through space. A mixed crew of humans, Velcarians, Rathi, and others shared duties on a research vessel heading toward the galactic edge. They were mapping those distant signals, preparing for eventual contact. Tay appeared beside her, as he often did. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Was it worth it? Hai asked. The 300 years of isolation? The transformation? Every second, Tay replied. We were quiet so we could learn to speak words worth hearing. We disappeared so we could return as something worth meeting. And now, when those beings from beyond finally arrive, they won't find a galaxy of children fighting over toys. They'll find adults ready to join the conversation. He looked at her, his enhanced eyes seeing things she couldn't yet perceive. That's the real gift humanity wants to give. Not technology, not power, but readiness. The readiness to face an infinite universe with wisdom instead of fear. Together. Hai smiled. The galaxy was changing. Slowly. Painfully. But changing. And somewhere beyond the stars, ancient civilizations watched and waited, seeing if this young galaxy would finally be ready to join them. Humanity had been quiet for 300 years. Now they had returned, not as conquerors, but as teachers. And the lessons they taught would echo across the universe for millennia to come.